civil rights leader in the United States that helped bring about needed and necessary civil rights for the African Americans that lived in America. It's a great model. And guess where he took a lot of his tactics and philosophy from? From Gandhi. It was about making change through nonviolent means and methods. This is Catherine Graham. Some people are like, who the heck is Catherine Graham? Right? If you've seen a movie, if you're a movie watcher, there's a movie called The Post, right? And it just came out. Catherine Graham was the first female CEO in America. And she took over for the Washington Post after her husband passed away. And she had an amazing courage to be able to produce the Pentagon Papers, which was critical of the Nixon administration around the Vietnam War. And later they were the ones that cracked the Watergate case, that brought down President Nixon. She had all kinds of threats that were given to her from the administration, the Nixon administration. But she stood in the face of those threats and was courageous, and she produced the truth. If you haven't seen the movie, go see it. It's called The Post. And it's an amazing movie about the life of Catherine Graham. This is Steve Jobs. Now, a lot of times people will think, hey, some of these people weren't necessarily nice people or good people. I'm not holding them up as perfect models, okay? So I'm not saying that. I think Steve Jobs was actually kind of a mean boss. I don't know if I would want to work for Steve Jobs. But what I admire about what he did is the legacy that he left us, okay? And I think that Steve Jobs left a legacy of bringing our world from black and white to color, okay? And you look at the iPhone and all of the iPad and all of his creations, and he's definitely left a dent in the universe, which is what his goal was. This is Nelson Mandela, right? Nelson Mandela showed us the power of forgiveness and reconciliation. He was in Robben Island as a prisoner in Cape Town, South Africa for 27 years. He later, 4 years after he was released from prison in 1990, 4 years later he became the president of South Africa. At his inauguration, his presidential inauguration, guess who he had sitting on the front row of his inauguration? His jailers, the South African jailers that treated him so poorly in Robben Island. He brought them and put them on the front row of his inauguration. He showed that you can forgive, you can forget, you can move on, we can reconcile. He's an amazing, amazing leader of somebody that taught us that and a legacy that he left. And finally, this is Bill Gates. And like I said, I think Bill Gates was inspired by Mother Teresa, but he's devoted the last 15 years of his life to philanthropy and to helping other people in need. And he's also brought on other billionaires, the world's billionaires, also to contribute and to provide philanthropy as well. So legacy is really, really important. And you know what? It's not just important because it's the right thing to do. It's important because economically it also makes sense. As I said with these riots, if you treat your community and people well, they'll give back. And in the end, it's going to be an economic right decision to do those kind of things. So I want to talk to you about two examples of people that I have seen that have tried to take more of the myopic view, okay? This is the view where they wanted to try to save costs and save money and produce more profits and so forth. The hotel chain that decided that they were going to reduce their bar soaps in the hotel room from 2 bars to 1 bar, okay? Now, how many here travel a lot? What's one of the most annoying things that you have happen if you're traveling is that you have your vanity, your sink, and there's a bar soap there. And then if they don't have one in the shower, it's the pain. Sometimes you get in the shower and it's like the bar soap's not there and you got to go over to the vanity. Well, this particular hotel chain thought, you know what? We're going to make a few extra bucks, and if we can reduce the bar soap from 2 to 1, we're going to make some more profits. Of course, what happened was the opposite. Their customers became annoyed with this and what it represented, what they felt like the hotel chain was doing. And instead of earning their loyalty and their trust, they lost their loyalty and they lost their trust. I had also a restaurant that used to serve amazing clam chowder. And at lunchtime, I would go to this restaurant, and there would be huge lines, long lines of people that would show up and would go to this restaurant because of their clam chowder soup. It was just amazing clam chowder. I lived in Boston for a while, and they love their clam chowder. They call it chowder. He likes some chowder. And clam chowder soup was great. Well, what the new owners came in, and guess what they decided to do? Well, this is great. We got all this business. We got all these customers, all this clientele. This is awesome. What we're going to do is we're going to water down the clam chowder, so that we can, have more soup to give. It's not as expensive. It's a stupid thing. So they watered down the clam chowder, and within 2 years, this restaurant was out of business. All because they tried to make a little bit of a profit. So what's the learning? What's the lessons here? The lessons are, you can never cut your way to prosperity, okay? It's never going to work. And if you look at the roles that we have, we are both leaders and managers. And I would suggest that leadership is about revenues, revenue creation. When you produce revenues, you're creating, you're innovating. You have to think outside the box, right? You have to think of ways in which you can grow the business. And that requires creativity and innovation. Management is about cost. It's about managing your costs, and it's about managing the business. I'm not saying one is more important than the other. They're both important. But I think currently, right now, we're overmanaged and underled. We need more leadership, and we maybe need a little less management. So, we have now discussed all 7 traps today, and I want to look at where we are at today as a trapologist. The idea is that we want you to be in this box, where you have spotted the traps. You now know about the 7 workplace traps, okay? Some of these may have been, duh, I know, yeah, I've heard of these before. Some of them may have been new revelations or new insights for you. But now you know about them. There's 7 of them. And your job is to be a trapologist, someone who is good at spotting traps now that you know about them, and rarely falls into them. Now that you know about them, you can avoid them. You can take different paths to navigate around these traps that are in front of you. If you rarely fall into traps and you're unaware of them, you're lucky. Your luck is about to change. If you're unaware of traps and you regularly fall into them, you're naive. And if you regularly fall into traps and you're good at spotting them, you're careless. So the purpose of this session today was to help you become trapologists. I hope that we've come a little closer to that today. I want to finish off with a brief message around the core message, really, of a trapologist. The core message of a trapologist is hope. It's the belief that anyone can change the trajectory of their life at any stage of their life. When I was 17 years old, my father made a bold move. He had been a university professor for 25 years. And he decided he was going to leave that cocoon, that comfortable life of being a university professor and a consultant. He had a great life, and he was making good money as a professor and a consultant, to bring 7 habits to the world. That was his passion. And he decided that he was going to do that. He was 50 years old, okay? And he had 9 kids. I was in the middle of the 9 kids. And I saw him say, you know what, this is my passion, this is my dream. I want to take 7 habits to the world. So he left the comfortable lifestyle of being a professor and started out on his own and built the Covey Leadership Center, which later became Franklin Covey. And for many, many years he struggled and didn't make money. Sometimes he would come to me, and I was newly married, a few years into his business, and he said, David, if I go out of business, can I come live in your house? Right? And I said, of course, Dad, you're welcome in my house. But he had his, everything mortgaged. He had his home, he had his cabin, he had his whole life savings. Everything was mortgaged on this business, and he was willing to take that risk. That inspired me to take the risk as well. My father used to teach that you should live life in crescendo. Live life in crescendo. What that means is that your greatest work is always ahead of you, not behind you. It's always ahead of you. And I was inspired by my father. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People book came out when he was 57 years old. Okay? Most people would say that that's in the twilight of your career. And yet, he was making his most meaningful contributions when he was older. Okay? 57, he produced the book, and for many, many years he ran and was able to grow Franklin Covey to a very successful business. Well, that led me, I had been at Franklin Covey for 16 years. My father had retired, and I always had wanted to own my own business. So I was 44, and I had 7 kids. This is my family. And this is my wife, and these, it's my oldest son and his wife, my 2 sons and their wives, and my daughter and her husband, my 2 daughters, and my 2 boys at home. So if any of you are wanting to adopt a couple boys or a couple girls, let me know. Let's talk, okay? We can make that arrangement. But I was 44 years old, and 8 years ago, and I decided to leave the cocoon of Franklin Covey, my father's company, and build my own business because I was inspired by what I saw my father do. That he could do that at age 50 with 9 kids. I could do that at age 44 with 7, right? This is going to be a snap. But for many years, my business struggled as well, and we had difficult times. And now I'm excited to bring Trapologists at work, to bring Trap Tales to the world. And this is my first trip that I've done this where I'm bringing Trapologists at work. Now, what a better place to do it than Thailand, right? So I want to just conclude. We started with this. We're all on this boat. The boat is the journey that we're on. And this boat, unfortunately, has holes. We need to patch the holes. We cannot just row and think that we'll get there to our destination. We won't. If there's holes in the boat, we're going to sink. The holes represent the traps, okay? The obstacles where we're stuck. We have to patch them. And guess what? If we do patch them, instead of looking like this, we're going to look like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. David. Can you please remain on the stage? และในโอกาสนี้นะคะขอเรียนเชิญคุณยุทธชัยเตชะราชกุลค่ะรองกรรมการผู้จัดการใหญ่บุคคลธนกิจธนาคาร UOB จำกัดมหาชนขึ้นมอบของที่ระลึกให้กับวิทยากรของเราค่ะขอเสียงปรบมือด้วยนะคะ Thank you very much once again, Mr. David Covey, for sharing with us. That was amazing. And thank you very much for sharing. One more time, ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause, please. And hope you come and revisit us again. Thank you. It's our pleasure having you here too. สำหรับช่วงนี้นะคะต้องบอกว่าการสัมมนาของ UOB 7 Trap Tales ปลดล็อกกับจากธุรกิจเสร็จสิ้นลงแล้วนะคะทางธนาคาร UOB ค่ะหวังเป็นอย่างยิ่งนะคะว่าทุกท่านจะได้รับความรู้รวมไปถึงตอบโจทย์ที่จะนำไปประยุกต์ใช้กับธุรกิจ